You remember the day you got your first paycheck? Maybe you were 17, maybe 22. It doesn't matter. What matters is that feeling. Holding that piece of paper or staring at that number on your phone screen and thinking, okay, this is it. This is how it starts. And then life happened. Rent, groceries, a phone bill, a car payment, subscriptions you forgot you had, a birthday dinner you couldn't say no to. And somewhere between that first paycheck and right now, you started asking a question that nobody ever really answered for you. Where does it all go? Not where did it go? Where does it go? Because it keeps happening. Month after month, you earn more, somehow you have less. You work harder, the number in your account stays the same. And in quiet moments, late at night, or sitting in traffic, or staring at a receipt you don't want to look at, you wonder if you're doing something wrong? You're not doing something wrong. You were never taught how to do it right. And that is not a small distinction. That is the entire game. Today, we are going to talk about what wealthy people actually understand about money. Not the motivational poster version, not the just work harder version, the real mechanics. The things that don't get taught in any classroom, in any country, at any grade level. The frameworks that separate people who build wealth slowly and quietly over time from people who earn good money their whole lives and still retire with almost nothing. This is going to take a while, because this topic deserves more than a list. It deserves a real conversation. So, let's start at the beginning. Think back to school. 12 years, minimum? In those 12 years, what did they teach you about personal finance? Probably nothing. Maybe you had one class, 1 week, one chapter in some economics textbook that mentioned savings accounts and compound interest in a way that felt completely disconnected from your actual life. Maybe a teacher briefly mentioned budgeting. But nobody, not once, sat you down and walked you through how money actually moves in the real world, how wealth is actually built, how debt actually works, how the systems around you are designed to interact with your paycheck before you even see it. Why? That question sounds conspiratorial, but it isn't. The answer is actually more mundane and more disturbing at the same time. School was never designed to make you wealthy. School was designed to make you employable. Those are two completely different goals, and the curriculum reflects that perfectly. Think about what school actually prepares you for. It prepares you to sit still for long periods of time, to follow instructions from an authority figure, to complete assigned tasks by a deadline, to show up consistently. These are not the skills of an investor or an entrepreneur. These are the skills of a reliable employee, and a reliable employee is exactly what the economy needs in large numbers. This is not a criticism of teachers. Teachers are largely underpaid, overworked people doing genuinely important work. This is a criticism of a system that decided a long time ago what kind of knowledge would and would not be passed down through public education. Robert Kiyosaki, whatever you think of him, made one observation that is simply and plainly true. Schools teach you to work for money, but they never teach you to make money work for you. That one sentence contains a universe of difference. Working for money means your income stops the moment you stop working. You trade time for dollars. You get paid for hours. The ceiling on this model is fixed by the number of hours in a day, and you can never exceed it, no matter how hard you try. Making money work for you means your money generates more money, independent of your time. You build systems, assets, and positions that produce income whether you're awake or asleep, working or on vacation, healthy or sick. School prepared you for the first model exclusively. And if you've spent your entire adult life inside that first model, wondering why it feels like running on a treadmill, now you know why it feels that way. Because it is. Here is something almost nobody talks about. Wealthy people and non-wealthy people don't just have different bank balances. They have different vocabularies. And that matters more than almost anything else, because you cannot think clearly about things you don't have words for. Let me give you the most important example: the word asset. Most people, if you ask them what an asset is, will say something like, something valuable you own. Your car? Your house? Your furniture? Maybe your education. This is wrong. Or more precisely, it's incomplete in a way that costs people hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Here is the definition that actually matters. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket regularly, without requiring your active labor every time. A rental property that generates monthly income. That is an asset. A stock portfolio that pays dividends. That is an asset. A business that runs without your daily presence. That is an asset. A piece of intellectual property. A book, a course, a patent that generates royalties. That is an asset. Now here is what most people call assets, but are actually the opposite. Your car. Your car costs you money every month. Insurance, fuel, maintenance, depreciation. Your car is not an asset. Your car is a liability dressed in the language of ownership. Your house in most cases. This one is controversial, but let's think clearly. If you live in your house, it does not generate income. It costs you money, mortgage interest, property taxes, maintenance, repairs, insurance. The house you live in is not an investment in the financial sense. It may appreciate in value over time, which is good, but until you sell it or rent part of it, it is a consumption item. The wealthy understand this distinction viscerally. They spend their money acquiring things that generate more money. The rest of us spend our money acquiring things that feel like wealth, but are actually expenses. Now the word liability. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket regularly. Most people's lives are dominated by liabilities: car payments, credit card balances, consumer loans, subscriptions, mortgages on primary residences. These are all cash outflows that happen before you have any chance to redirect that money toward building something. And the critical insight, the one that changes everything, is this: wealthy people obsess over increasing assets and minimizing liabilities. That is the entire strategy in one sentence. It doesn't require genius. It doesn't require luck. It requires understanding these two words deeply enough that they start to filter every financial decision you make. The third vocabulary word is cash flow, not income. Cash flow. These are not the same thing. Income is what you earn. Cash flow is what remains after everything goes out. You can earn $100,000 a year and have negative cash flow. This is actually extremely common. In fact, studies consistently show that a significant portion of people earning six figures live paycheck to paycheck, not because they're irresponsible, but because their liabilities have expanded to consume their income. The goal is not to earn more. The goal is to widen the gap between what comes in and what goes out, and then direct that gap toward assets that generate more inflow. That feedback loop, compounded over years, is how wealth is actually built. Let's talk about compound interest. You've probably heard the term. You may have seen the charts. But I want to go deeper than the standard explanation, because most people understand compound interest intellectually and completely fail to act on it emotionally. And the emotional understanding is what actually changes behavior. Here is the basic math first. If you invest $10,000 at an average annual return of 8%, which is roughly the historical average of the S&P 500 when adjusted for inflation, after 10 years you have approximately $21,000. You didn't add anything. You just left it alone. After 20 years, $46,000. After 30 years, $100,000. After 40 years, $217,000. From $10,000. That you never touched. Now here is where it gets painful. The difference between starting at 25 and starting at 35 is not 10 years of returns. It is not even double. Starting at 25 instead of 35 with the same $10,000 investment produces roughly twice the final balance at retirement age. A decade of delay does not cost you 10 years of growth. It costs you approximately half your final wealth. This is why every year you wait is not neutral. Every year you wait is actively expensive. But here's the part they really don't teach you. The compound effect doesn't only apply to money. It applies to debt in the exact same way, just in reverse. If you carry a credit card balance of $5,000 at 20% annual interest and you only make minimum payments, you will spend years paying it off and ultimately pay more in interest than the original purchase cost. The same mathematical force that builds wealth for investors is systematically destroying the financial position of people who carry consumer debt. The wealthy understand that compound interest is either working for you or against you. There is no neutral position. Every month you carry debt, it compounds against you. Every month you hold appreciating assets, it compounds for you. The entire art of personal finance is simply getting yourself to the side of this equation where the math is working in your favor. Here is a concept that almost no one in school ever mentioned: multiple streams of income. The average millionaire, according to research done by Thomas Stanley in his decades-long study of wealthy Americans, has not one income stream, not two. An average of seven. Let that land for a moment. Most people are one paycheck away from a financial crisis, one layoff, one medical emergency, one company restructuring, and everything falls apart. Not because they're bad with money necessarily, but because they built their entire financial life on a single point of failure. Wealthy people build redundancy into their income the same way engineers build redundancy into critical systems. If one stream stops, 5 others continue. The total doesn't collapse. What do these streams look like in practice? Earned income. This is your job, your salary, your freelance work. Time for money. This is the first stream most people build, and often the only one they ever build. Business income. Income from a business you own that operates at least partially without your constant presence. This could be a small local business, an online business, a service company with employees. The key characteristic is that it scales beyond your personal hours. Rental income, money generated by property you own that others pay to use. Residential real estate, commercial space, even renting out a parking spot or a storage unit. Any arrangement where you own something and others pay you to access it. Investment income, dividends from stocks, interest from bonds, returns from index funds or ETFs, money that your invested capital generates automatically. Royalty income, payment for something you created once that continues to generate revenue. A book, a piece of music, a patent, a software product, a course. You do the work once, the income continues. Capital gains. Profit from selling an asset for more than you paid for it. A stock you bought low and sold high. A property that appreciated. A business you built and sold. And then there are various other streams. Licensing, affiliate arrangements, lending, that occupy the space between these categories. The point is not that you need all 7 immediately. The point is that you need to start thinking in terms of building streams, not just earning a salary. Because a salary is a container with a fixed capacity. Streams can multiply. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because everything we've talked about so far is intellectual. Vocabulary, math, strategy. And most people, when they hear this information, nod along and feel a temporary surge of motivation, and then go home and make the exact same financial decisions they made yesterday. Why? Because the human brain was not designed for long-term financial thinking. It was designed for survival in an environment where tomorrow was uncertain and today's resources needed to be consumed before they disappeared or were taken. We are operating ancient hardware in a modern financial environment, and the modern financial environment has been specifically engineered by very smart people to exploit the weaknesses in that ancient hardware. Let's talk about a few of them. Present bias. Your brain assigns dramatically more value to rewards that are available right now than to rewards that are available in the future. This is why a $50 item you can buy today feels more compelling than $500 you could have in 10 years through investing that $50. Rationally, the future value is obviously better. Emotionally, the present reward wins almost every time. Every single marketing system, retail environment, and consumer credit product is designed to amplify present bias. Buy now, pay later. Limited time offer. Only 3 left. Flash sale ending in 12 minutes. These are not coincidences. They are deliberate triggers for a documented psychological vulnerability. The hedonic treadmill. When you get something new, a car, a phone, a piece of clothing, you feel a spike of pleasure. And then within weeks or sometimes days, that item becomes your new normal. The pleasure evaporates, and your baseline resets upward. Now you need something newer, something better, something more, just to feel the same level of satisfaction you felt before. This is why people who double their income often don't feel any wealthier 6 months later. Their spending expanded to match their income, their hedonic baseline reset, and they're back to the same feeling of not having enough, just with more expensive problems. Social comparison. Humans are tribal animals. We measure our status not against an absolute standard, but against the people around us. And in the age of social media, the people around us now include everyone. People living lives that are either genuinely wealthy or carefully curated to appear that way. Research consistently shows that people's spending decisions are heavily influenced by what they perceive their peers to be spending. When you see someone your age driving a certain car or taking a certain vacation, something in your brain registers that as a benchmark you should be meeting, even when you can't afford it, even when meeting it would destroy your financial position. The wealthy are not immune to these psychological forces, but many of them learn, either through financial education or through painful experience, to recognize these patterns in themselves and build systems that protect against them. Automatic investments before they can spend. Clear financial goals that give them a reason to resist impulse. A different scorecard, one that measures net worth rather than visible consumption. Let's talk about something that genuinely changes your financial outcome by tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime, and that most people understand at approximately a kindergarten level. Taxes. Most people understand taxes as the government takes some of my paycheck. The end. Wealthy people understand taxes as a system with rules, and those rules were largely written with input from people who understand them deeply. And if you understand the rules, you can operate very differently within them than if you don't. Here are a few things most people never learn. Not all income is taxed equally. When you earn a salary, your income is taxed as ordinary income. In the United States, depending on your bracket, this can mean federal tax rates of 22, 24, 32, or 37%, plus state taxes in most states. When you earn money from an investment you've held for more than 1 year and then sell it, that income is taxed as long-term capital gains. The federal rates for long-term capital gains are 0, 15, or 20%, significantly lower than ordinary income rates for most people. When you own a business and generate income through it, a world of deductions opens up that simply doesn't exist for employees. A home office, business-related travel, equipment, education directly related to your business, health insurance premiums in many cases. These deductions reduce the income that gets taxed in the first place. When you own rental property, you can deduct mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance costs, And this is the one that surprises people most. Depreciation. Depreciation allows you to deduct a portion of the property's value every year as a paper loss, even if the property is actually increasing in value. This can dramatically reduce or even eliminate your taxable income from that property. None of this is illegal. None of this is a loophole. These are the rules. They apply to everyone. But you have to know they exist to use them. The wealthy have accountants and tax advisors. Not because rich people are lazy, but because the return on investment for good tax advice is extraordinary. Paying a competent accountant $2,000 to find $15,000 in legal tax savings is a 700% return. No investment consistently produces that. This is not about evading taxes. This is about understanding the system well enough to operate within it intelligently, rather than paying maximum tax because you never learned you didn't have to. Part 7. The network effect of money. There is one more thing wealthy people understand that is almost never discussed openly. Your network determines your net worth in ways that go far beyond motivation posters. Access to information. When you know people who are actively building businesses, investing in real estate, working in finance, or running their own funds, you get access to information and opportunities that simply don't circulate publicly. A real estate deal that never gets listed, an investment opportunity with a track record, a business partnership, a job at a company that doesn't post externally. Access to capital. If you need to start a business, renovate a rental property, or invest in something with high potential, having relationships with people who have capital or who know people who do changes what's possible for you. Most of the funding for successful startups and investments doesn't come from banks. It comes from networks, access to mentorship. Being around people who have already made the financial journey you're trying to make compresses your learning curve dramatically. You avoid mistakes they've already made. You learn frameworks that took them years to develop. You see what's actually possible because you're standing next to someone who did it. This is one of the most self-reinforcing aspects of wealth. Wealthy environments produce more wealthy people, not primarily because of inherited money, though that helps, but because of inherited knowledge, network, and norms. The practical implication for someone who didn't grow up in that environment is this: you have to be intentional about building those connections. Seek out communities of people who are further along the financial path than you. Go to events. Read what they read. Study the businesses and investments they discuss. The information is more available now than it has ever been in human history. What was once locked behind country club memberships and private dinners is now accessible through books, podcasts, online communities, and educational content. The gap is still real, but it is more closable than it has ever been. I want to stop here and say something that might be uncomfortable. Everything we've talked about today, assets and liabilities, compound interest, multiple income streams, tax strategy, networks, this is not secret knowledge. It's not hidden. It's in books, it's in courses, it's in the biographies of wealthy people who have been remarkably transparent about how they think. So why don't more people know it? Because knowing is not the hard part. The hard part is that this information requires you to delay gratification in a culture that is entirely built around immediate gratification. It requires you to think in decades when everything around you is optimized for seconds. It requires you to feel poor in the short term, to invest money you could spend, to drive the older car, to skip the vacation you can't afford, in order to be wealthy in the long term. And that is genuinely hard, not intellectually, emotionally, behaviorally. The wealthiest people aren't smarter than you. Many of them aren't even more disciplined by nature. What they have, what most of them developed through some combination of upbringing, mentorship, pain, and deliberate learning, is a different relationship with time. They feel at a gut level that future money is just as real as present money. that the version of themselves in 20 years deserves as much consideration as the version of themselves tonight. That shift in perspective is the real education. Everything else is just math. You didn't get this in school. That is a fact. And it's legitimate to be angry about it for a moment. But here is what's also true. You're getting it now. And the most dangerous response to this information is to feel overwhelmed and do nothing. Because doing nothing is a choice. Keeping money in a checking account that earns essentially zero interest while inflation erodes its value is a choice. Continuing to pay minimum payments on credit card debt while carrying a balance is a choice. Spending every raise you get before it has a chance to compound is a choice. They're just choices most people make without realizing they're making them. So here is what I want you to do. Start with vocabulary. Learn the difference between an asset and a liability until it becomes automatic. Look at every financial decision through that lens. Does this put money in my pocket or take money out of my pocket? Then start with one. Not 7 income streams. One investment account. One index fund. One small step towards something that generates income beyond your salary. The goal at the beginning is not the amount. The goal is to start the habit of acquiring assets before you acquire more liabilities. Then learn your tax situation. Not at a deep level immediately, just enough to know what deductions and accounts are available to you. A Roth IRA, a 401k. Basic business deductions if you have any self-employment income. A 1-hour conversation with a basic financial advisor can save you years of tax overpayment. And then, and this is the most important one, find people who are doing what you want to do. Not people who have inherited wealth and don't think about it. People who built it deliberately from a starting point similar to yours. Learn how they think. Ask questions. Read everything they've written or recommended. School failed you on this subject. But the curriculum is available. The teachers exist. The information is out there. The only question left is whether you're going to take the class.